Brave heroes confront a giant serpent in an epic battle to rescue a mother lioness. The radio of Officer Mike Brennan crackled to life during his quiet patrol through Grove County, Texas, a small community resting on the outskirts of Houston. All available units, we've got an emergency at the Shepherd Wildlife Rescue. Staff reports a large python has breached its enclosure and is now threatening other animals. Animal control is swamped with multiple calls. Any officers nearby, please respond. Mike exchanged a brief glance with his partner, Officer Jason Coleman. They were less than 5 minutes from the sanctuary. Dispatch, Unit 217 responding. 4 minutes out, Mike radioed back, hitting the cruiser's lights as Jason hit the gas. Neither man said a word as they raced toward the facility. In their combined 2 decades with the Grove County Police Department, both had answered countless unusual calls. An escaped python, however, hadn't exactly been covered in their academy training. The Shepherd Wildlife Rescue had opened its doors 3 years prior. It was a private facility focused on rehabilitating exotic creatures rescued from illegal ownership or trafficking. Founded by Dr. Karen Shepherd, a former zoo veterinarian, the sanctuary had become an unexpected draw for the otherwise quiet county. When the officers pulled through the gates, a frantic staff member waved them urgently toward the African predator section. Morning sunlight cast long shadows across the pristine grounds, normally calm but now buzzing with frantic energy. "Thank God you're here," called out a woman in khaki pants and a staff polo as they parked. "I'm Dr. Shepherd. We've got a situation deteriorating by the minute." Mike assessed her quickly, early 40s, composed despite obvious stress, clearly someone accustomed to handling crises. "What exactly are we facing, ma'am?" Mike asked. Brutus, our reticulated python, somehow breached his enclosure during feeding. He's 22 feet long, roughly 250 pounds, Dr. Shepherd explained, jogging ahead toward the big cat area. He's made his way into our lioness enclosure. Nala has 2 8-week-old cubs. She's defending them, but she's outmatched. Brutus is in full predatory mode. Jason's eyebrows shot upward. "Wait, we're talking about a snake attacking a lion?" Reticulated pythons are ambush predators. In the wild, they can take down forest pigs, deer, even the occasional leopard, Dr. Shepherd explained grimly. Nala weighs about 300 pounds. But Brutus has the advantage of constriction. If he gets properly coiled around her, he could kill her. The cubs would be easy prey afterward. "Why not tranquilize the snake?" Mike asked as they hurried. "We tried. The dart bounced right off his scales from the angle we could safely shoot. We need to get closer, but nobody can safely enter with both predators in distress. Our animal management team is assembling proper snake handling gear, but they're 15 minutes out. By then, it may be too late." As they rounded the corner toward the lion habitat, Mike froze at the scene unfolding before him. The enclosure was designed to mimic an African savanna, acacia trees, rock formations, tall grass. In the center clearing, a life-and-death struggle raged. A massive yellow and brown serpent had partially wrapped itself around a tawny lioness. The big cat roared and thrashed, her powerful claws raking against the snake's muscular body. But the python's head weaved hypnotically, waiting for its moment to strike. What made the scene even more heartbreaking were the 2 tiny cubs cowering beneath a nearby rock outcropping, their small bodies trembling as they watched their mother fight. "Jesus Christ," Jason muttered, instinctively resting a hand on his service weapon. Dr. Shepherd shook her head. "Shooting is absolutely a last resort. A bullet could pass through the snake and hit Nala, or ricochet inside the enclosure. And if both adults are incapacitated, those cubs won't survive without immediate care." Mike surveyed the habitat, his tactical training engaging. "What's our best access point?" "Service gate on the east side," Dr. Shepherd pointed. "It leads to a keeper corridor with access to the main enclosure. But I have to emphasize, entering that space with 2 apex predators in combat mode is extremely dangerous. Do you have any equipment we could use? Snake hooks, shields, anything?" Jason asked. "Basic capture equipment in the shed by the gate. catch poles, a snake hook, protective gloves. Our specialized gear is with the response team. Mike made a quick decision. Call your team. Tell them to hurry. We'll see what we can do to separate them until professional help arrives. As Dr. Shepard stepped away to make the call, Jason grabbed Mike's arm. Are you serious? We're not trained for this. Those cubs are going to watch their mother die if we don't try something, Mike replied quietly. We've handled aggressive dogs. Even that bull that got loose last summer. Same principles, create distance, establish barriers, minimize risk. Jason didn't look convinced, but he nodded reluctantly. They jogged to the equipment shed, where a sanctuary staff member helped them gather what might be useful: thick leather gloves, 2 catch poles designed for canine control, a snake hook, and most promisingly, a large CO2 fire extinguisher. Cold can temporarily disorient snakes, the staff member explained. It might buy you a moment to separate them. Armed with their improvised gear, the officers approached the service entrance. Dr. Shepard met them there, her face grave. Response team is 8 minutes out. Nala's tiring. Brutus has managed 1 coil around her hindquarters. If he gets a second coil, he'll start constricting in earnest. We understand the risks, Mike assured her. But we can't just stand by. Dr. Shepard unlocked the service gate. The corridor leads directly to the habitat. Once inside, you'll be in an open space with no barriers between you and the animals. If either redirects aggression toward you, retreat immediately through this gate. The officers nodded, adrenaline surging as they stepped through the first gate. The narrow keeper corridor was cool and dimly lit, the sounds of struggle growing louder as they approached the habitat access door. I'll take the extinguisher and try to distract the snake, Mike said quietly. You use the catch pole to try creating space between them. No heroics. If it looks too dangerous, we back out and wait for the professionals. Jason nodded tightly, adjusting his grip on the catch pole. At the habitat door, they paused for a final moment of preparation. Through the mesh, they could see the situation had deteriorated. The python had managed a second coil around the lioness, who was now bellowing in pain and fury as her movements became more restricted. The cubs meowed pitifully from their hiding place. Ready? Mike asked, hand on the door latch. As I'll ever be, Jason replied, his face set with determination. They pushed through into the habitat, immediately hit by the heavy scent of predators and the stifling Texas heat. Up close, both animals were even more intimidating. The python's body was as thick as a man's thigh, muscles rippling beneath iridescent scales. The lioness's teeth gleamed as she snarled, eyes wild with maternal fury. Neither animal immediately noticed the human intruders, locked as they were in their life-or-death struggle. Mike circled cautiously to position himself near the python's head, while Jason approached from the opposite direction. The officers moved with deliberate slowness, understanding that sudden movements might trigger either predator to redirect their aggression. When Mike was about 15 feet from the battling animals, the python's head swiveled toward him, black tongue flicking rapidly to taste the air. Unblinking reptilian eyes fixed on this new potential threat, momentarily distracted from the lioness. Now! Mike shouted, discharging the fire extinguisher directly at the snake's head. The cloud of cold CO2 hit Brutus square in the face, causing the massive reptile to recoil in confusion. In that crucial moment of distraction, the lioness found new strength, twisting violently in the python's loosened grip. Jason lunged forward with the catch pole, using it to create space between the two animals. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. The python, disoriented but still dangerous, struck out blindly. Instead of reconnecting with the lioness, its massive head connected with Jason's leg, powerful jaws clamping down just above his knee. The officer cried out in pain, stumbling backward as the snake's momentum carried them both to the ground. Jason! Mike shouted, abandoning the extinguisher and drawing his service weapon in one fluid motion. The situation had just gone from dangerous to potentially fatal. Across the enclosure, Freed from the python's grip, the lioness retreated toward her cubs, her maternal instinct overriding any aggressive response toward the human interlopers. But the immediate danger had shifted. Now it was Jason fighting for his life as the massive snake began to reorient itself, powerful muscles tensing to begin wrapping around this new prey. "Don't shoot!" Dr. Shepard shouted from the service entrance, her voice cutting through Mike's tunnel vision. "You might hit Jason, or puncture the snake's vital organs, causing a slower death and more aggression." Mike's police training battled with his instinct to protect his partner. The python had released its bite but was now beginning to wrap around Jason's leg. The officer's face contorted in pain as he struggled to push the massive reptile away. "What do I do?" Mike called back, holstering his weapon while keeping his eyes locked on his partner. "The hook. Use the snake hook to control the head," Dr. Shepard directed, rushing into the enclosure despite the danger. Mike grabbed the aluminum hook from where Jason had dropped it. The tool, designed for handling large reptiles, featured a curved end that could pin or guide a snake's head without causing injury. "Keep him distracted," Jason grunted, using all his strength to prevent the python from establishing a second coil around his torso. Blood seeped through his uniform pants where the snake's teeth had punctured his thigh. Mike approached with the hook, hard hammering against his ribs. Brutus sensed the movement, his wedge-shaped head swiveling toward this new threat, tongue flicking rapidly to taste the air. Taking advantage of the distraction, Jason pulled himself backward several inches, wincing as the movement caused the coil to tighten around his leg. "I need to get behind his head," Mike said, circling cautiously to position himself. The snake's unblinking gaze followed him, its massive body tensing in preparation for either defense or attack. In his peripheral vision, Mike noticed Dr. Shepard approaching from the opposite direction, a large canvas bag in her hands. She caught his eye and nodded slightly. They needed to coordinate their actions. "On my count," she said quietly. "I'll distract from this side. You pin the head, then I'll secure it." Mike nodded, adjusting his grip on the hook. His palms were slick with sweat inside the leather gloves, his breath coming in controlled bursts as he fought to remain calm. 3, 2, 1. Now. Dr. Shepard flung the canvas bag toward the snake's tail end. The sudden movement drew Brutus's attention for a crucial second, just long enough for Mike to lunge forward and pin the python's head to the ground with the hook, pressing firmly behind the jaw. The snake's powerful body writhed in protest, muscles rippling beneath iridescent scales as it fought against the restraint. But Mike held firm, leveraging his weight against the hook, while Dr. Shepard rushed forward with practiced efficiency. "Keep the pressure steady," she instructed, producing what looked like a modified pillowcase from her pocket. With remarkable dexterity for someone dealing with a dangerous predator, she guided the snake's head into the sack, then secured it with a quick twist. "Jason, can you pull free?" Mike asked, still maintaining pressure on the hook. His partner grimaced, working to extract his leg from the python's loosening grip. "Almost, got it," he gasped as he finally pulled clear, immediately dragging himself several feet away from the restrained reptile. The python, head now secured in the bag but body still dangerous, continued to writhe and coil. Dr. Shepard maintained her grip on the sack, while Mike kept the hook in place. "The response team should be here any second," she said, her professional calm belied by the sweat beading on her forehead. "We just need to hold him like this until..." A thunderous roar interrupted her, sending a primal chill down Mike's spine. In the chaos of restraining the python, they had momentarily forgotten about the other apex predator in the enclosure. Nala the lioness had recovered from her ordeal and was now advancing toward them, her posture low and threatening. Whether she perceived them as additional threats or was simply reacting to the continued commotion near her cubs was impossible to know. What was clear was that their situation had just become significantly more complicated. "Nobody make sudden movements," Dr. Shepard said quietly, her eyes fixed on the approaching lioness. "Mike, maintain your position with Brutus. Jason, can you make it to the service door?" Jason had dragged himself to a half-sitting position, his injured leg extended awkwardly. "Not quickly," he admitted, pain evident in his voice. Nala continued her advance, powerful shoulder muscles rippling beneath tawny fur, her amber eyes shifting between the humans and the still writhing python. A low growl rumbled from deep in her chest. "She's protecting her cubs," Dr. Shepard explained, her voice deliberately even. "She won't leave them, but she wants all threats neutralized." Mike's arms burned with the effort of maintaining pressure on the snake hook. "I don't know how much longer I can hold this position," he admitted. Before Dr. Shepard could respond, movement at the service entrance caught their attention. The sanctuary's response team had finally arrived, 4 staff members in protective gear carrying specialized reptile handling equipment. "We need a multi-pronged approach," the lead handler called, assessing the situation quickly. "2 of us will take over python control. Dr. Shepard, you and one of my team try to create a barrier between us and the Lioness. We'll extract the snake first, then all back out together." The plan was sound, but executing it with a protective mother lion advancing was another matter entirely. As the handlers moved cautiously into the enclosure, Nala's growl deepened, her tail lashing in agitation. In that moment, a high-pitched mewling sound came from the rock outcropping. One of the lion cubs had emerged from hiding, wobbling uncertainly on tiny legs. The second cub followed, both babies seemingly drawn by curiosity, or hunger, toward their mother. Nala's attention immediately shifted. With a final warning glance at the humans, she turned and padded back to her offspring, herding them gently but firmly toward the security of the rocks. "That's our window," the lead handler said. "Let's move." With practiced efficiency, the response team took over control of the python. One handler replaced Mike at the hook, while another secured the snake's body with a specialized grip. The remaining 2 handlers unfurled a large transport tube designed for safely moving large constrictors. Mike stumbled backward once relieved of his position, muscles trembling from the prolonged exertion. He immediately moved to Jason's side, helping his partner to his feet. "Keep pressure on that wound," he instructed, noting the blood still seeping through Jason's torn uniform. "I'll live," Jason grimaced, leaning heavily on Mike as they began a careful retreat toward the service entrance. "Can't say it's how I expected my Monday to go." Behind them, the handlers had successfully maneuvered Brutus's massive body into the transport tube, securing each section as they worked their way from head to tail. Dr. Shepard maintained a watchful eye on Nala and her cubs, making sure the Lioness remained calm during the extraction process. Once outside the enclosure, paramedics were waiting to examine Jason's injury. The python's fangs had left 4 deep puncture wounds that would require stitches. But remarkably, no major blood vessels had been damaged. "You're lucky," the paramedic commented as she cleaned the wounds. "Snake bites, even non-venomous ones, can cause serious infections. We'll need to transport you for proper treatment and antibiotics." As Jason was being tended to, Dr. Shepard emerged from the service corridor, her expression a mixture of relief and residual tension. "The python is secured and being returned to a reinforced holding enclosure," she reported. "Nala and her cubs are doing well, all things considered. Our veterinarian is monitoring them for any signs of stress or injury." She turned to Mike, extending her hand. "I can't thank you both enough. Your intervention almost certainly saved Nala's life." Mike shook her hand, suddenly aware of how exhausted he felt. "Just doing our job, ma'am. Though I admit snake wrangling wasn't covered at the academy." "How did Brutus escape in the first place?" Jason asked from the gurney where the paramedics were preparing him for transport. Dr. Shepard's expression turned grim. "That's what's concerning me. The lock on his enclosure was intact, but the access panel beside it was partially dismantled. It appears someone deliberately created an opening large enough for him to escape through." "You're saying this was intentional?" Mike asked, his police instincts immediately kicking in despite his fatigue. "It's hard to see any other explanation," she replied. "Brutus has been with us for 3 years after being confiscated from an illegal exotic animal collector. In that time, he's never shown any escape behavior, and the damage to the panel couldn't have been done by a snake. It was clearly human interference." "Any disgruntled employees? Threats from animal rights groups?" Anyone who might want to create an incident? Mike asked, mentally shifting from animal rescue to potential criminal investigation. Dr. Shepard hesitated. We did recently turn down a substantial offer for Brutus and several other rare specimens. A private collector from overseas was very persistent, even after we explained that our animals are not for sale under any circumstances. I'd like the contact information for this collector, Mike said. And we'll need to secure the python's enclosure as a potential crime scene. As the paramedics loaded Jason into the ambulance, Mike's radio crackled with an incoming message from dispatch. Unit 217, what's your status at Shepherd Wildlife Rescue? Mike pressed the transmit button. Situation contained, dispatch. One officer injured, non-life-threatening. We'll need additional units for a potential criminal investigation. 2 days later, Mike stood in the lobby of Grove County Memorial Hospital, waiting as Jason signed his discharge papers. His partner had received 20 stitches for the python bite and a course of powerful antibiotics to prevent infection but had otherwise emerged from the ordeal relatively unscathed. Ready to tell this story at AL's? Mike asked as Jason limped toward him, a prescription bag in hand. The local cop bar would undoubtedly erupt when they heard about the snake wrestling incident. Only if you're buying, Jason replied with a grin that quickly turned serious. Any developments on the case? Mike nodded, holding the door as they exited into the humid Texas afternoon. Quite a few, actually. The crime scene techs found tool marks on the python's enclosure that match a specialized reptile handling tool. Not something your average vandal would carry. So, definitely an inside job. Or at least someone familiar with exotic animal handling. Looks that way, Mike confirmed as they settled into his personal vehicle. But here's where it gets interesting. Dr. Shepard provided the information on that persistent buyer. Guy named Victor Shao, supposedly represents private collectors in Asia. Our department reached out to Fish and Wildlife Service, and turns out they've had him on their radar for suspected involvement in illegal exotic animal trafficking for years. Jason whistled. So the theory is he tried to create a distraction to somehow steal the python? Not just the python, Mike corrected, pulling into traffic. The security team reviewed their camera footage from that morning and spotted 2 unidentified individuals near the southeastern perimeter around the time of the incident. That section houses most of the sanctuary's rarest reptiles, Komodo dragons, rare vipers, some endangered tortoises. The working theory is that the python release was meant to draw staff attention while accomplices attempted to access those enclosures. But we screwed up their timeline by responding so quickly, Jason concluded. Exactly. The security footage shows the suspicious individuals retreating when our patrol car arrived. The officers fell silent as Mike navigated through town toward the sanctuary. Chief Wallace had assigned Mike to follow up with Dr. Shepard on additional security measures, a task he'd readily accepted. Something about the case and the sanctuary itself had gotten under his skin. When they arrived, the sanctuary seemed to have returned to normal operations. Visitors strolled between exhibits, families with children eagerly pointing at various enclosures. Only the increased security presence, both uniformed and plainclothes, hinted at the recent incident. Dr. Shepard met them at the administrative building, looking more rested than when they'd last seen her. Officer Coleman, glad to see you up and about, she greeted them. How's the leg? Sore but functional, Jason replied. I'm just here to tag along while Mike follows up. Doctor's orders, no active duty for another week. Well, we appreciate you both coming back. I'd like to show you some of our security upgrades, and there's someone special who might appreciate seeing you. She led them through the sanctuary, pointing out new camera installations and enhanced enclosure locks. The improvements were impressive for such a short time frame, suggesting significant resources had been allocated to preventing any similar incidents. The FBI's Wildlife Trafficking Task Force has taken an interest in our case, Dr. Shepard explained as they walked. They believe it may connect to several other attempted thefts at conservation facilities across the Southwest. Victor Shao has apparently gone off-grid since your department reached out to federal authorities. Not exactly the behavior of an innocent businessman, Mike observed. No, though his lawyers insist he was merely a broker for legitimate private collections. Dr. Shepard paused as they approached the African predator section. Here we are. I thought you might like to see how Nala and her cubs are doing. The lioness's enclosure had been modified since their last visit. Additional security features were evident, but so were enrichment elements designed to reduce stress for the animals. Nala lounged on a raised platform, watching with serene attentiveness as her cubs tumbled and played nearby. She seems completely recovered, Jason remarked, watching the family through the reinforced viewing glass. Physically, yes, Dr. Shepard confirmed. We conducted a thorough examination once she was calm enough to be safely approached. Apart from some minor abrasions, she's fine. The cubs were unharmed, just frightened by the commotion. And Brutus? Mike asked, somewhat surprised by his own concern for the python that had nearly killed his partner. Also recovered. We're keeping him in a more secure area of the reptile house for now. Despite everything, he was just acting on instinct. The real villains are the people who orchestrated this situation. They watched the lion family in companionable silence for a few moments. The cubs had settled down for a nursing session, their tiny bodies pressed against their mother's side. It was a peaceful scene that belied the danger they'd all faced just days earlier. I have something for both of you, Dr. Shepard said eventually, reaching into her pocket. She withdrew 2 small carved wooden figurines, one a lion, one a snake. Our board of directors wanted to express their gratitude for your courage. These were made by a local artist who works with the sanctuary. Mike accepted the lion figure, turning it over in his hand. The carving was surprisingly detailed, capturing the powerful essence of the animal in smooth, polished wood. That's real nice, ma'am, but we were just doing our job, he said, though he pocketed the figurine carefully. You're just doing your job saved 3 lives that day, Dr. Shepard replied firmly. Most people would have waited for the animal specialists to arrive, by which time it would have been too late for Nala. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a woman in an FBI windbreaker, accompanied by a sanctuary security officer. Dr. Shepard, Agent Collins needs to speak with you, the security officer announced. They've made an arrest connected to the incident. The agent stepped forward, nodding professionally to the officers. We apprehended one of Zhao's associates attempting to leave the country. He's cooperating in exchange for consideration and has provided information about a planned operation targeting multiple wildlife sanctuaries in Texas and Louisiana. Targeting them how? Dr. Shepard asked, her expression concerned. Coordinated thefts of high-value specimens, rare reptiles, big cats, anything with significant black market value. Your incident was apparently a test run that went wrong. Agent Collins glanced at Mike and Jason. The local police response time was unanticipated. It disrupted their entire timeline. Mike felt a surge of professional pride, tempered by the sobering realization of how extensive the trafficking operation might have been if not stopped. We'll need formal statements from both of you, the agent continued. Your first-hand accounts of the incident will strengthen our case considerably. Of course, Mike agreed. We'll help however we can. As Agent Collins and Dr. Shepard stepped away to discuss details, Jason turned to Mike with a thoughtful expression. You know, when we got that call, I thought it was going to be some routine animal problem. Maybe a raccoon in someone's garage or a deer on the highway. Never imagined we'd end up wrestling a python to save a lion, Mike chuckled. We made a difference, Jason continued, watching the lion cubs through the glass. Those little guys might not have a mother if we hadn't shown up when we did. In the enclosure, Nala had risen and was grooming her cubs with methodical care, her powerful body positioned protectively around her offspring. The scene carried a tranquility that contrasted sharply with the violent struggle they'd witnessed days earlier. 6 weeks later, Mike and Jason stood in dress uniforms at a ceremony held on the sanctuary grounds. What had begun as a routine call had evolved into one of the largest wildlife trafficking busts in Texas history. Victor Zhao and 5 associates had been arrested across 3 states, with evidence linking them to illegal animal smuggling operations in multiple countries. The Grove County Police Department had partnered with the Shepherd Wildlife Rescue to establish a new rapid response protocol for wildlife emergencies, a first-of-its-kind program that was already garnering national attention. Chief Wallace, never one to miss a public relations opportunity, beamed as reporters snapped photos of his officers receiving commendations. For extraordinary courage and quick thinking in the face of extreme danger, Wallace announced, presenting Mike and Jason with departmental citations. Officers Brennan and Coleman exemplify the finest traditions of law enforcement, extending protection to all members of our community, including those with 4 legs, scales, or fur. Dr. Shepherd followed with her own presentation, framed photographs of Nala and her growing cubs, now beloved attractions at the sanctuary. A small plaque at the bottom read, "Guardians come in many forms. With gratitude from the Shepherd Wildlife Rescue." After the ceremony, as guests mingled and enjoyed refreshments, Mike found himself drawn back to the lion enclosure. Nala lounged in the afternoon sun, watching her cubs with the serene confidence of a mother who had faced danger and survived to protect her family. "She remembers you, you know," Dr. Shepherd said, joining him at the viewing area. "Whenever you visit, she pays more attention than with other visitors." "Probably just coincidence," Mike replied, though he couldn't help but feel a connection to the big cat who had shown such remarkable courage. "Maybe," Dr. Shepherd conceded. "Or maybe she recognizes a fellow protector." She paused, then added, "We're expanding our outreach program with local schools, teaching kids about conservation, responsible wildlife management. We could use a police officer's perspective occasionally, if you're interested." Mike watched as one of the cubs pounced playfully on its sibling, their mother supervising with patient vigilance. 6 weeks ago, these cubs had huddled in terror as their mother fought for their lives. Today they played without fear, secure in their protected environment. "I think I'd like that," he said finally. In a world where dangers came in many forms, from massive pythons to international smuggling rings, there was something profoundly satisfying about making a tangible difference. Not every call would involve dramatic animal rescues, but every day offered opportunities to protect the vulnerable, whether human or animal. As if sensing his thoughts, Nala rose and approached the viewing glass, her amber eyes meeting his with that same unsettling intelligence he'd noticed during their first encounter. She regarded him steadily for a long moment, then turned and padded back to her cubs. Her message, if there was one, delivered. Mike smiled, touching the small wooden lion figurine he now carried in his pocket as a reminder of that extraordinary day. Sometimes the most unexpected calls led to the most meaningful connections. And sometimes being brave meant facing not just physical danger, but the challenge of expanding your definition of what, and who, deserved protection. That was a lesson worth carrying forward long after the headlines faded and routine patrols resumed. A lesson embodied by a mother lion's courage and 2 officers who had refused to stand by when lives, any lives, hung in the balance.